So let me share a story with you as to why we decided to design a series of leadership conversations. The Center for Coaching has been teaching people how to coach for over 20 years now. And something we realized is that coaching isn't always a silver bullet. There are times where people absolutely need to be able to be clear, to be firm, to be direct, to say what needs to be said. Sometimes relationships break down, they need to rebuild trust. Sometimes a leader needs to be able to mentor. These are all reasons that mean that coaching may not be the right conversation. So when you coach somebody, you are assuming that they already know what it is that they need to do. Or if not what they need to do, they have the right information somewhere, but it's blocked somehow. There's something blocking them. It could be an emotion, it could be a past experience, it could be that they've forgotten something. But through a series of the structured coaching conversation we teach in this 2-day module, we would show you how to go about unblocking somebody, opening new possibilities that they think of themselves. So when you're coaching, you are not giving advice. You're not telling them what to do. You're not manipulating them into doing what you want them to do. You are literally providing a space where they can come forward with what it is that they already know, but have, as I say, either blocked or not been able to access. Now that's fantastic. But in the cut and thrust and the chase that everyday life is, that's not always possible. So many leaders will say to us, I don't have time to coach. So we said, all right, what are the leadership conversations that most needed in this world? And the first one is, so many people have come to us over the years and said, I don't trust my staff, or my team lets me down. I'm always so busy, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overcommitted, but nobody else can do it. I'm the only one. And so on. And they're overburdened, stressed, distressed, and in disarray. It turns out that the conversation called alignment is the one that where we start and we say, what if you were able to make powerful requests such that people actually understood what you were asking, not what you were thinking, but what you actually asked, and they knew exactly what to do, when, where, and how. They would be far more able to meet your needs. In addition, we discovered that many people are not careful and clear with their commitments. So people take on too much and sometimes they don't quite know what it is they are signing up for. So requests and promises is a conversation which allows you to look at the way you delegate, the way you manage, the way you get instructions over to people, and that whole conversation about how to catalyze people around you. That is what we focus on in the second leadership conversation. But what if you ask somebody to do stuff? You're very clear, you're specific, you do everything right, and yet they still don't do it right. Well, then it's time for what we call a feedback or developmental feedback conversation. So there's a big difference between just giving somebody feedback, like just praise or criticism, versus a conversation where you actually say, you know what, what did you see happen? This is what I saw happen. What are we going to do about it? How do we create a new way forward? And so that conversation is incredibly powerful. It's a developmental feedback conversation. And that's the one you have when you've made a request of somebody, they haven't delivered, there's some blind spot they're not seeing. You can share with them what it is. And together you come up with an action plan. So like a learning circle. It's a learning conversation. It's a brilliant conversation to have in a learning organization. So that's great. So if you go, you have your learning conversation, you've given them the feedback, you've developed them, this is wonderful. They still don't do it, or they still do it wrong. There's something that's not right. And now it's time where you go, there's a time when you're a leader where actually you need to say, you know what, I've cared about you. I've done my best for you and the team and others, but actually now I am being impacted, me, the leader. And this is not okay for me. I am upset or distracted or disturbed in some way. I've been disappointed, sometimes even wounded. I need to have a conversation for me about my distress. And that we call a direct conversation. Because if I can have this conversation where my upset is still relatively small, then it is a manageable conversation. It's one where you are very clear, very clear about what it is you need and want. Your concern is for your own welfare, and you're clear and specific to the person. But there's the way that you turn it so that they also are seen and heard. They leave that conversation with somewhere to go, something to do, and the two of you are able to restore the relationship because now they see the impact of their behavior on you. And that's something, again, we often sit on that and don't have that conversation until it's too late. So that escalates all the way through in terms of getting stuff done. Now we have a situation, what happens as a leader where you make a mistake? Because we're all fallible, we're all human. There are things, sometimes we make commitments, we don't live up to them. Sometimes we genuinely make a mistake, we forget something, we make a promise, we break it. You break trust, right? It's easy to think of all the times other people have broken trust to you. But what is it when you break trust with somebody? It's quite difficult to see those moments. And that's when it's time for rebuilding a relationship, rebuilding trust. That's a very profound conversation to have where you are willing to go in and say, you know what, I see, I take ownership of something I did or didn't do that I realize has had an impact on you. And it may even be that you want to apologize or you want to say that you see it, however you express it, taking ownership, very important. And that's a rebuilding trust conversation. Those 5 conversations are often the 5 conversations that leaders need most in the cut and thrust of the business world. We find with those, most leaders are able to really, really amplify their effectiveness in the workplace. And there's one more. There's a 6th conversation that is also profoundly important, and it's not usually done in the humdrum everyday life. It's usually put aside, and that's what we call a mentoring conversation. And so mentoring is a wonderful skill. It's an art. People think it's easy, and I cannot tell you how many mentors I've coached who say, you know, I'm so-and-so's mentor, but I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I, you know, and the whole thing is very confusing for the mentor, never mind the mentee. We unravel that, we unpack the mystery of it, we show you how the flow of a mentoring conversation works, and we show you how to be an extremely effective mentor as well. We hope to see you on one or more of these conversations. If you can come to all of them, you will not regret it. But even if you can't, come to 1, come to 2, come to the ones you know will be most effective for your leadership style. Thank you.